Hello and welcome to SEO 101 on WMR.FM, episode number 477. This is Ross Dunn, CEO of Step Forth Web Marketing, and my co-host is my company's senior SEO, Scott Van Ack. Well, we've been talking about fishing, and we've got it out of our system. So any other fellows who love fishing, let's talk about it on the forum. Go to the SEO 101 forum.
That's right.
On Facebook, and we'll chat. It's so fun. Anyways, let's jump right into this. We got it out of our system, so we won't bother you. Some non-SEO news. A lot about I guess the hackers have been very, very, very active lately targeting WordPress users, and it's made a mess of things. That doesn't mean everyone who's got WordPress has problems. It just means you all have to be a little more aware. A recent vulnerability for the Lightspeed cache, if you have that plugin in your WordPress, has affected over 6 million sites. I didn't see anywhere whether it gave that rating out of 10, but I would imagine this is a 9.9 because it allows, if not a 10, because it allows complete total site takeover. Complete site takeover, I should say. So bad news. If you've got that going there, make sure you have updated your plugins on a regular basis. This one in particular, I would actually remove, at least until they've got everything fixed up. It's pretty scary. It looks like WordPress itself has made some changes. What's this about?
Yeah, so WordPress, and actually I think Roger Monty just posted this today. So lots of WordPress stuff today specifically. So WordPress is actually locking down security for all plugins and themes. So for the regular web owner, this isn't going to affect you, but this will affect people who are developing plugins, who are developing themes and that sort of thing. They are tightening security with 2 big improvements to help protect with these 2 new layers of security. This is largely in response to a number of attacks that occurred in June, which compromised multiple plugins at the source. So again, this will affect developers, not individual sites, but they are forcing 2-factor authentication, which will begin on October 1st. So it's just a few weeks away. And that makes me so glad it's on the developer side of things and not our end, because if we had to do 2FA for all of our clients, I mean, we do for some, it's a pain in the butt. It really is a pain. But I get it. And I know that's the future. They're all going to be 2FA eventually, but I'm just grateful that they aren't all yet.
Yeah, not all on October 1st.
Could you imagine? Oh, we'd be living in Google Authenticator for a month, setting everything up. And so so developers are going to have to be forced to do 2FA, and also they're implementing SVN passwords. So this is kind of technical. I really don't understand it. Most of you, so you may or may not know, but essentially, it just adds an additional layer of security for authenticating developers. So it's SVN is subversion passwords. Again, if you know what that means, this will mean something to you. If you don't,
Welcome
have
to
to
the
look
club.
it up. Yeah, you don't have to look it up unless you want to.
So another piece here, and these are just important things we feel we have to share, but this isn't really interesting. WebXray.ai, that's WEBXRAY.ai. So it's pretty much as it sounds, is a tool created by an ex-Googler who was, frankly, he quit because he was dissatisfied with how poorly they handled privacy. Not a big shock there. He can't share a lot of details, but he was not impressed at all. So this tool is designed for legal and compliance professionals to check for violations on the web, privacy violations. It was started, I thought it was 2021. Is you sure it was 2012?
Well, I thought so. I might be wrong now. It
sounded like he started. Yeah, you know what? He might have had it as sorry, you're right. Actually, now that I remember the long article I read about it a while ago, I believe he started even before he was hired, and he just had it kind of running on the side. And now he's gone all guns ablazing and he's upgraded it substantially, and now it's a pay-for model. It uses the same tools corporations use to track people, but instead uses them to track corporations and show where they're getting too much information, more than they should be. And it happens a lot. It's supported numerous litigation actions and creates admissible evidence. I love it. Yeah, I did post about it on Facebook, I think. And at one point, I was just so excited when I saw this, because as much as some privacy things can get a little out of hand. There's just too many ways that these giant companies are taking advantage of us. So I think it's fantastic that Google could be getting a smackdown among other companies. This is good.
I I don't want to go down the whole rabbit hole of my rant,
No.
but I kind of want to play with this and see if I can dig up anything on Instagram and Facebook and how they're listening to you actively and showing you ads based on what they hear, even though Zuckerberg says they absolutely do not do that. I think we can basically all realize that they 100% do.
Yeah,
Um,
somehow what we say does appear in an ad, and there's no way we didn't search it, we didn't do anything. It's very suspicious.
I had an example like that. I was telling a buddy about a video I had seen probably a decade previously, and my phone was in my pocket, and I had never looked this video up in probably the last 10 years, never talked about it, nothing. That night I went home, I opened up, I think it was Facebook, might have been Instagram, and that video showed up in my feed.
Mm,
And it's like, okay, come on. You can't say it's coincidence. Like it's an old video from the 70s. I haven't seen it in 10 years, and now you're coincidentally feeding it to me. Like, yeah, right. You're not listening to me. So I'd be curious to see if that pops up somehow. They just Zuckerberg just say, "Oh, it's a fluke." Like, oh, okay.
yeah, it
Um,
would be wonderful if this could track that. I don't know. All right, next up here, Google Trends email subscriptions are going to stop working on October 29th. I know exactly what this is about. I had a subscription for a few Google Trends, and they probably aren't doing it anymore because people weren't looking at them. I know I stopped looking at them, but they kept coming in. Um, it was just a way to get updates on particular trends. So anyway, it's now closed and it's going to be stopping it completely at the end of October. You can still access all the data, of course, live by signing up to the daily newsletter. Actually, not by live. By signing up to the daily newsletter, subscribing to an RSS feed, or manually visiting the website. So they have other alternatives. I'm surprised they kept the other ones running.
you can still get the data, but if you're using that subscription model, that kind of sucks for you now. But like you said, it's probably all just going to spam or they're just sitting there unopened.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's another thing. It's been around for about 10 years. It's another thing that Google's closing. They're good at that. They're actually really good at stopping things.
Yes. In
Um,
this case, it's not a big deal,
yeah,
but
no, but
sometimes or most of the time it is. But all right. Finally, SEO news. Thanks for your patience, all. I hope you enjoyed and learned a few things there. Now, it's almost always the beginning of our SEO
it
news
is.
section. Core updates. What have you got to report?
Yeah, so the August core update, we talked a bit about it in the last show, and I think even a little bit about it the show before. It's done. So it ran August 15th through September 3rd. So any rankings you're seeing now, that's it. You're not going to see things bounce around. So did you win? Did you lose? Let us know. It's apparently this update did cause a lot of ranking movement within the results. When I check through our clients, I mean, I'm not seeing anything earth shattering. I'm seeing some small ups and some small downs, nothing crazy, which I kind of like it that way, although big ups would be cool, but I haven't seen big downs. So that's a big win, if you ask me. But that's not going to be the case for everybody. So, take a look and see what you need to do. If you did find anything bad, of course, you're probably going to have to wait. Even John Mueller says, well, here, I'll just read this quote from John. He said, this latest update takes into account the feedback we've heard from some creators and others over the past few months. As always, we aim to connect people with a range of high quality sites, including small or independent sites that are creating useful, original content on relevant searches. This is an area we'll continue to address on future updates. This update aims to better capture improvements that sites may have made, so we can continue to surface the best of the web. He also said, I thought that was in the quote. Apparently it wasn't. He said, there are no specific actions to take. A negative impact does not signal anything necessarily wrong with your site. And if you were hit by it, recovery is not likely to occur until after another core update. So, focus on that quality content. Just keep building quality content. And if you're doing a good job building good content, if you were hit by this, you'll recover. If you weren't hit by this, hopefully you'll improve further with the next update.
Yeah. And again, trying to avoid a rant, but just to say again that the basics here is that I have no problem with people who are doing bad things having to wait till the next core update. It's the people that get caught unexpectedly and incorrectly and have to wait for an update. That's what
Yeah.
really bothers me. And inevitably, there's many. They just are so far from perfect in this realm. And I don't know if it is possible to be perfect, but it would sure be nice if they had a better response to these kind of issues. Anyway. All right. Google search is testing new display for forum content. So the search results we see these days, well, for the longest time, there's been a top answers section in search results, if it's been applicable, about 10 years, in fact, where forum content would show up, and multiple places too, not just Reddit, a whole long number of places. This change, however, provides even more information than before. The new look includes top comments and related content. Again, Google stresses that they're surfacing content from all sorts of forums. They're trying to make sure that it's fairly associated with a multitude of different sources. But I think we can all guess which company is going to have the most exposure, and that's Reddit.
No.
Yeah, I know, right? No.
I was working really hard with my brain overtime trying to think of a forum that's dead to make a joke that everybody would know about, and I came up blank. Maybe that's a joke, me.
Well,
So
I
there's
didn't
got to
really
be.
use many forums. I can't think of many either.
Well, we used like a lot of the webmaster forums,
Yeah, stuff people
but
wouldn't
those are
necessarily know.
no. But I haven't been in there for so long. It's Reddit really now. They've taken it all over.
Yeah, that's going to bother me now.
I won't talk
Anyways,
about I won't talk about the phishing forums you and I both use.
yes, exactly. Although hopefully those will be accounted for.
Yes.
All right, so Google Search now supports AVIF formats, AVIF file formats, I should say. That's AVIF. This is a very simple video compression standard, an open image format. It's royalty free, and it's a specification for storing images or image sequences compressed with AV1 in the HEIF container format. Ooh, thick
A
stuff.
lot.
Yeah. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Well, if you're using the format, then you're happy because you're finally being indexed properly. That's probably going to be good news for your SEO. And hopefully you'll see some ranking benefits. If you don't, well, nothing. It means nothing.
Yeah,
It's total vapor.
no reason to switch to it or anything like that. Just only good news if you already use it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, why bother? I guess until they say it's fast or there's something particularly useful about it, why bother?
The fact that you just said that, if the right person is listening, there's going to be a rant on our Facebook page with a big explanation of why you should switch. I'm sure there's a good reason in there somewhere. And if you are that person, you're like, no, you need to switch. Please enlighten us. I want to hear it.
I'm 100% in. Let me know.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about it. I've seen it and I've even read notes about it, but nothing that's ever made me realize there's a reason to do anything. So I love that it's open source though, royalty free. So that's really great. Makes it easy for people to use and export to. All right,
Awesome.
Google Docs. What's this about?
Yeah, so Google's reporting they've actually updated their canonical tag best practices. We've got a link to that in the show notes if you want to read it in more detail, to not specify a fragment URL as a canonical. We don't do this anyways. I've never heard of them being called fragment URLs, but I've seen them many times. So what is a fragment URL? This is any URL that contains a hashtag or a pound symbol or whatever the number sign, whatever you want to call it out there. It goes by many names. Most common, and we've used these before for SEO purposes or for just web design, is using it as an anchor. So the link will appear in an anchor. So if you've got like maybe a table of contents at the top of a page and you click, let's view this bullet point, and then it automatically scrolls you down the page. Well, it's using a fragment URL to get you there. They are also commonly used with JavaScript to change content on the page and some fancy stuff like that. Anyways, do not use a variation of that includes that hashtag in your canonical tag. Google says they do not generally support fragment URLs. Don't you love that? They don't generally. So I guess they do sometimes. But yeah, so it's like we've never do, most people don't, but I guess enough people are doing that Google felt the need to update their docs to
I
tell
can't
you
even
not
imagine
to.
the stuff they see done anyway.
Yeah.
It must be interesting.
I wonder how
All
many
right.
people have to do something bad for them, not necessarily bad, but wrong for them to add it to their docs. There's got to be a threshold there.
That's a good question. Must be a massive threshold because
Yeah.
they've got a lot of stuff to do. All right, well, let's take a quick break, and we got one more piece of news here for the SEO section. It's about some testing that Google's doing. We'll be right back.
SEO 101 will be back right after recess.
Welcome back to SEO 101 on WMR.fm, hosted by myself, Ross Dunn, CEO of Stepforth Web Marketing, and my company, Senior SEO, Scott Vanak. Okay, so Google is doing some more image work here. What's this all about?
Yeah, so Barry actually can't reproduce this, and I can't it's always the case, isn't it? There's a test and nobody can see it. It's a mystery test. He saw it. Oh, I'm going to butcher this name. I'm sorry. We'll say Kushal Burwani.
That's what I'd say.
Perfect. That's got to be correct then, right? Anyways, he shared this to Twitter. Sorry, X. I can't call Twitter X. I don't know. I can't get it straight anymore. Anyways, when doing an image search at Google, typically what you can do is you can do an image search. If you click on one of those images in that search, you get the little pop-up on the right, or the screen kind of shifts and you get a bigger version of that image with some more stuff. Well, within that stuff, there's now a link or a heading that's being seen that says from this image with more images below. Because we can't replicate it, we can't say exactly where they're coming from. Barry suggests, and I agree with this, that they're likely related images to either the product, maybe more images of the same product, or images from the same web page. But we're guessing at this point. But keep an eye out for it. It might be helpful if your site is image heavy and you get a lot of love from Google image search. This might be a good way to get more exposure for you. We'll see anyways, but
and that must be computationally heavy. I can't even fathom that, because I've seen these examples on some of the stuff my daughter looks at, which is like pictures of I don't know, a room in a TV show she likes, and it's got arrows pointing to different things in the room that you can buy online.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah, and it's I think it's definitely manually curated, but I guess Google's trying to emulate something like this computationally, and wow, that has got to be tough. Very interesting though, and I can see that becoming quite common. If again, it's not too much for their systems, they're going to have to only surface it for the most promising searches, I'm sure.
Yeah, fun little change. We'll see. I think it'll pick up to something. It'll grow for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, and I love this. So this is the local SEO news, and I'm glad you found this. I hadn't heard of this, and it's just so priceless. Yelp is suing Google, alleging illegal dominance of local search. The lawsuit alleges that Google's monopoly in search has allowed it to illegally dominate the local search and local search advertising markets. Here's a quote. Is this just from the article or from?
This is from the article, yes.
Okay. Yelp's antitrust lawsuit against Google addresses how Google abuses its illegal monopoly in general search to engage in anti-competitive conduct, including self-preferencing its own inferior local product to dominate the local search and local search advertising markets, unquote. Almost, yeah. Anyway, I think this is hilarious because I despise Yelp. It is one of the worst companies to have to work with from a business point of view. As soon as you have a listing there, you have very little control over anything, and they're terrible to work with. So I don't want them to win. I want them to go down the tubes personally, but
so this episode of SEO1 is sponsored by Yelp. Is that what you're saying? No.
yeah. Geez.
Could you imagine?
That would be funny. But anyway, I just have a hard time here. I'm usually all in for anyone embarrassing Google about their local search technology because it's tragic. But this, no, I don't want Yelp to win.
I don't really like Yelp, and honestly, I haven't used it in a long time because I dislike it so much. But
yeah,
when they talk about Google as an inferior product, we talk a lot about bugs in Google Local lately, and a lot of ways to hack, like the pin attacks and stuff recently. And maybe they're not totally wrong. Maybe I need to look into Yelp and see if they're getting better. I don't know. But Google definitely has their problems. But
the thing is, Yelp isn't showing up anywhere because Google's monopoly. So who cares?
Well, that's a very good point. Very good
Unless
point.
they start showing up more, it's not going to be on our radar. I mean, we have the most basic things done for our clients just to get them that citation and such if they want it. Many say no. And we have a caveat saying that they shouldn't jump into Yelp unless they're ready to manage it. Yeah, it is there for them to work with. Uh, yeah, I mean, there's no question. Google's uh, local search is infantile and definitely inferior. There's just no question in my mind. So I'm glad someone's calling them out on that. I just wish it wasn't equal.
Why couldn't it be somebody better? Like Yellow
Yeah.
Pages? No.
All right. So this is a Mueller file. A LinkedIn question about links quantity in a blog post. And I just think this is hilarious. I don't know what the person expected John to say, but anyway, Batinder Singh says, I have a question. It's a common practice among SEOs to believe that adding a total of 2 to 5 internal links and around 1 to 3 external links in a 1,000-word blog post is beneficial. They also think that adding more links could be harmful to their site, while adding fewer links might not provide much value. Could you please clarify whether the quantity of links really matters? Unquote. So anyone who's watched John knows what he's going to say here. Anyway, here it is paraphrased. John's response, quote, nobody at Google counts the links or the words on your blog posts. And even if they did, I'd still recommend writing for your audience. I don't know your audience, but I have to yet to run across anyone who counts the words before reading a piece of content. It's sometimes useful to have rules of thumb to give you a starting place. There are also numbers which are generally helpful when making strategies, but blindly following numbers when it comes to humans will lead you nowhere. Unquote. This actually touches base on something we talked about, I think, in the last episode or one before, I can't recall, where I was mentioning that even what we say in the show has to be taken with a grain of salt because we're generalizing things. And it's the necessity of speaking broadly. You can't say what's going to work for your website, your specific site, unless we know everything about it and you know everything about it. We're giving broad suggestions. And that's essentially what this person's run into. Now they're asking whether or not it's really true. And it's like, well, it can be, or maybe not. Anyway, John it was just an easy one for him to answer. I'm sure he must have had a good chuckle.
It would have been great though if his response was like, yes, you must have exactly 2 to 5 internal. I have like, wow, really? But yeah, the answer was kind of expected.
That needs to be an April 1st post they put out.
Oh, yes. Oh, we should do it.
Yeah,
I'd say we should do a great April 1st SEO 101. But the problem with that is, people don't always listen to it on that day. And they're going to hear it a month later. And well, we're going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
So maybe we shouldn't do that.
No, thanks.
Did you know hidden text really helps? No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that.
So this next is a question we got from Rick, and we both. Well, Scott, why don't you read it off?
Sure. So Rick says, I own a service-based business, and we cover a few different areas. We have a page for each area. Area 1 has 228 towns and villages. Area 2 has 107 towns and villages, and Area 3 has 80 towns and villages. Now, each town or village page links to 3 relevant town or village pages, which are close. Oh, see, I read that before, like there were 3 additional, but they're just like cross-linking them. Okay. That makes a bit more sense now. I'm like, so you're multiplying. Sorry. I guess you had to be in our pre-recording conversation to get my ramble. But his question is, but my question would be on the main 3 areas, 1, 2, and 3, how could we display a link to each of the areas which doesn't look spammy? Thanks in advance. Doesn't look spammy.
Now, we had a chuckle. That's kind of like Rick, we love your question, and more questions, the better. But unless your site is enormous, so it eclipses all of this information, I don't know how it won't look spammy. And I'm not trying to cut you down here. I think I actually know many service-based businesses who have gone to some extent, never quite to this extent. This is a lot of work. And I'm afraid that Google's going to see this and find a lot of issue with it. I guess, again, we're trying to be broad because we don't see your website, right? we're being careful with our answer here because many times it depends. Is the content completely unique on every single one of those pages? That's a lot of pages. And does it add value to Google? I mean, you're running the risk of having those pages completely discounted because there's just so many, and it would be a lot of work to make all of those meaningful and useful to Google.
I'm just rereading his question here. And he says, how could we display a link to each of the areas, which doesn't look spammy, but he only has 3 areas. So is he talking about linking just to those 3 top level pages and not necessarily the 400 or so town and village pages, I wonder? Because that wouldn't look spammy. Linking to the top level area page, and you've only got 3 of them, you could do that in a drop down. You could have a banner of sorts or some buttons, or I mean, you could do that almost any way you want. But it'd be linking to the individual town and village pages that is where it
That's
gets
going
really
to be
tricky.
very difficult. And I mean, what I'm stating is, although I know I'm not directly answering your question, Rick, is I'm just setting the scene that kind of you're already in the Spammyville, range.
Spammyville.
Well, village, lots of villages on the scene, right? Spammyville.
Love it.
Yeah. So with that said, if you're just linking to the main 3 areas, then that doesn't look necessarily spammy, I guess. Although what I would probably do is just I'd ensure that each of those are in their own silos. So area 1 is a silo, area 2 is a silo, area 3 is a silo, and then just have them linked from the main navigation. What do you think, Scott? Or do you have it? I wouldn't put it in the footer because I think that would look too spammy.
It really, again, it comes down to, without seeing the website, it's really hard to say. Probably having them within, like in your drop down under locations or contact us or something, having a sub menu for the areas within there, and then each of those pages do their thing. That seems to make the most sense to me, probably. But again, without seeing the site, I don't know that I could really say what to do.
Now, with Google the way it is right now, this could and I say that because I'm not too impressed with them and how they're managing landing pages and stuff. This could very well be working for you. Don't take the impression that we're trying to hack on this. I just worry that it is already putting you at risk right now with what you're doing here. But if you're milking it and it's working well, go for it. And if you're trying to ensure that you don't go that extra mile that makes it even worse, I would go with the siloed version of just links to the 3 areas, and that's it. Anything else, it's just too hard for us to guess. And even if we did have it in front of us, I think we'd have to sit down and really think about it. Yep. We'd want to make sure.
One way might be to embed a map and have pins on the map with all the towns and villages, and those pins could link.
Yeah.
To those pages. That might be a non-spammy way to do it, assuming again that each of those pages is unique in its own right, that it can stand alone.
Yeah. Now, if we use a map, we can't use image maps anymore, I don't think. Those are even used anymore.
That's tricky. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. If you want to talk further, Rick, let us know. I think you've got an interesting idea there, and I wish you luck. I hope it turns out well. And I'm sorry if we haven't been very helpful, but it's just so difficult without seeing the site. All right. Well, that was a good episode. Lots there to share for you. I hope you all found it useful. On behalf of myself, Ross Dunn, CEO of Stepforth Web Marketing, and my company senior SEO, Scott Van Ack, thank you for joining us today. Remember, we have a show notes newsletter you can sign up for at SEO101radio.com. Have a great week, and remember to tune into future episodes, which air every week on WMR.fm.
Great. Thank you for listening, everybody.